What's going on, y'all? It's your boy O Scruggs back at it again. OS Sports Podcast. Let's get into it. So there's been a whole lot going on. NBA free agency started this week. Actually started about 6 hours ago. And it got off to a start that was crazy. It seemed like it's getting more insane. Each year, ever since LeBron went to Miami, and players kind of came up with this system of signing a deal maybe 2 years then opting out, and players became more open to going to other teams instead of staying with the team that drafted them. So you can say LeBron really did change the way the game works, because free agency has been around for a while, but it's never been this crazy. The early stages of free agency, let's just stick to the NBA. For the most part, you had players staying with their teams, unless there was like a real bad situation. You didn't have all this turnaround that you have now. It seems like at least the last 3 or 4 years, you never know who's going to stay where, with so many players opting out. And the main thing with players talking to each other saying, yo, we should team up and play together. So it's been a crazy day. And it's so different than baseball free agency. I remember me being a Phillies fan. I remember when Bryce Harper and Manny Machado were out there. Weeks and weeks and weeks went by, and just numerous reports and speculation of who was going where, how much they were going to sign for, what was holding up the deal. And you see with this NBA free agency, we're not even 5 hours into it, and all types of things have gone down. So much stuff I had to make notes. Usually I can memorize all this stuff. I actually had to have some notes because there's a lot of movement. So I think the first movement that came around, even though this was before free agency, this was actually a trade, was Michael Conley Jr. Leaving Memphis and going to Utah, which I think is going to be great for Utah. They had, I think it was Ricky Rubio and I forget the other guy that's from Australia. They were the guards, and I think pairing Michael Conley Jr., who's a point guard that can run the offense, he could be a facilitator, but he also can be a scorer, is going to be great to put next to somebody like Donovan Mitchell. He could also be like a big brother to Donovan Mitchell, because Donovan Mitchell has all the talent in the world, but you can tell he's young and he's still figuring out how to play. And I think having a point guard like Michael Conley, who can also score, it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Donovan Mitchell, because the main problem I see with Donovan Mitchell is, since Utah lacked scorers, he took a lot of shots. So he was a high volume shooter, and because of that, he scored a lot, but he didn't necessarily shoot for a good percentage, and he didn't necessarily take good shots. But I think with a point guard like Conley coming in that can run the system, can tell him how to be a better player, I think that's going to be great for them. So I think Utah, their offense is going to be a lot better. So I believe that was the first move. I think that trade came down on draft night, if I'm not mistaken. So let's get into the real big news that popped off today. So previously we was talking about the NBA Finals, and we was talking about Kevin Durant, the injury, how that was going to lead to his offseason, his free agency. Would he stay with the Warriors? Was he going to go to the Knicks? If you remember, I forget which game it was of the finals, you had somebody in the crowd. It actually wasn't the finals. It was against Houston. You had somebody in the crowd screaming, New York Knicks. That was the talk. Stephen A. Smith, all these people were speculating that Kevin Durant was going to end up on the Knicks. So Kevin Durant opted out of his deal with Golden State, and I think a lot of people still felt he was going to re-sign with Golden State, especially after the injury. But he opted out of his deal so he could re-sign for the new max now that the cap has went up and the max went up. But he didn't do that. Turns out he did go to New York, but it's the Brooklyn Nets to join, ding, 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 Kyrie Irving. There's a lot of speculation about Kyrie Irving. Was he going to go to the Lakers and rejoin with LeBron? But that was kind of early talking. And later on, most reports were coming out that Kyrie was leaning towards the Knicks or the Nets, and it's the Nets, which like I said, I'm from Philly, born and raised, but I live in Brooklyn now. Actually, where I'm at right now is about 15 minutes from Barclays. So my vibe I get from people in Brooklyn, most of them grew up Knicks fans, because the Nets, we're in New Jersey, so nobody really was paying attention to them in Brooklyn. But you see Nets, people rocking Nets gear in Brooklyn. But the truth be told, me living here for 4.5 years now, nobody really cared that much about the Nets. Even when they, even this season when they made the playoffs, it was some hype around it, but not a whole lot. But I think this will change that for the Nets. So I think with the Knicks, being in such disarray and Knicks being bad for so long now and not picking up a free agency in this free agency market. Even though I think the Knicks, I literally just saw this report. I think the Knicks got his name is skipping my mind right now. He played for the Lakers, and he was with New Orleans last year, which is a good pickup, but it's not a big free agency pickup. And it goes to show because I can't even recall his name off top. But so I think you will see a lot of New York fans that are Knicks fans more turn to the Nets. Not just people in Brooklyn, but all over New York, Manhattan, Queens, turn to the Nets because let's keep it real. People gonna jump on that bandwagon. Oh, we got Kyrie now. We got Durant now. Oh yeah, I'm rocking with the Nets now. That's just what happens. And they got rid of D'Angelo Russell. Now I assume because the early reports were the Lakers were interested in D'Angelo Russell and the Lakers need a point guard. I think those were the reports coming from a lot of people that cover the NBA, and also kind of assumed that too. Like, all right, D'Angelo Russell go back to the Lakers. I know he had an issue with trust because of the whole situation with Swaggy P and him pretty much diming him out to his girlfriend for cheating. But all those players are now gone. So I think a lot of us speculated that him going back in that locker room wouldn't be an issue. But lo and behold, did not see this coming. The Warriors trade Andre Iguodala and they bring in D'Angelo Russell. And I'm just interested to see how that's going to work because Steph Curry is a point guard, D'Angelo Russell is a point guard. So I'm interested to see maybe they're going to try to take some of the ball handling out of Steph Curry's hands and play him more at a two position. And maybe that'll free him up to score a little bit easier. And also maybe take some of the wear and tear of the season of having to bring the ball up. Even though Iguodala did a lot of that for them too, but now he's also gone and Durant is gone, who also did a lot of ball handling. So if you look at that Warriors team, they got the backup point guard Cook. But as far as the starting lineup, they have somebody in D'Angelo Russell they could put the ball in his hands. And I'm assuming D'Angelo is going to start at the point, and they're just going to put Steph at the two, but they'll be interchangeable. They'll basically both be one and two, if that makes sense. They'll both be playing in 1 and 2, depending on the set or whatever. So they lose Durant. I mean, Durant wasn't going to play next year for them anyway, but they lose Durant far as after that, and they lose Iguodala. That I was more shocked that Iguodala was traded. But if you looked at the Breakfast Club, the interview Iguodala did, where he called out the Warriors medical team and the organization, period. Like he said, he had a broken leg and they put it out, I believe says like a bruise. And then he also called it out, not directly and not viciously, but he called them out for how they handled Kevin Durant as well. So once I seen him do that on the Breakfast Club, I was like, wow, you seldom see a player coming out speaking out against the current team. But I figure he's a finals MVP. He's been there for a while. They've won 3 championships, been to 5 finals with him. Maybe that's something he can get away with. Apparently not. Maybe they won't trade him anyway. Iguodala is up there in years. He's becoming more injury prone. So maybe they just felt like this was the time to move on from him as well. Not exactly sure what his contract situation is, but maybe that played a part in it as well. Moving on to the next one, which really strikes at home for me, is the Sixers traded, signed and trade technically, Jimmy Butler. Now, me as a Sixers fan, I wanted them, we've been saying the Phillies running back, I wanted them to sign Tobias Harris, which they did, to a 5-year, $180 million contract. I didn't want that for Tobias Harris. I didn't think he was a max player, but I was willing to give him the max if they were also going to bring Jimmy Butler back and just have both of them on the max. Just Tobias by himself without Jimmy, I was still good with, but I didn't feel like he should get the max. But it is what it is. They're going to rock out with that. Jimmy Butler goes to Miami, which is confusing to me because Jimmy Butler kept saying money wasn't as important to him as winning. And Miami is more on a rebuilding stage. And from what I heard, I think it was Adrian Wojciechowski reported that he wants Jimmy wanted to be on a team where they build around him. And Maybe Jimmy Butler thinks more of himself than the rest of us do. I think Jimmy Butler can be your second best player on a championship team, maybe in the third, but not the best. But hey, he did what he felt he had to do, and I guess the Sixers did what they felt they had to do. And some reports came out that some of the same stuff with Jimmy, that he didn't necessarily mesh well with the team. Not that he had been a big problem like he was in Minnesota, but maybe they saw looking down the future, like, all right, this guy has spazzed out a couple times on his other team, so maybe it wasn't worth the risk. I would have gave it a shot, even with the age, which was more my concern than personality. I was more concerned with the age, what he would be like on maybe that fourth and fifth year of that deal. But I was willing to give it a shot because I think the Sixers window is now with Embiid, because Embiid, with his injury and his body types, we've seen it with big men before. I think his prime is maybe only another 3 or 4 years. So I was, all right, if you telling me you're gonna go all in the next 2 years, especially considering Kevin Durant is gonna be out for this upcoming season, I figured, they seen Toronto go on a run. Maybe they figured this was the year they could go on a run, but I guess not. So the Sixers get Josh Richardson, and I believe I'm not sure what else came in that deal. I'm still waiting to hear more information on that. Sixers also picked up Al Horford, which I love Al Horford. Al Horford is a great player. And so that kills two birds. One, you get him off the Celtics because he killed us when he was with the Celtics. And two, now he's on your team. He could be a backup for Embiid, but also start at the 4. And Embiid is probably not going to play back-to-backs anymore, so he can step in and be the starting center when Embiid is out. My only problem with the Al Horford deal is that they gave him 4 years. I think that was kind of long for somebody that's already 33. But Al Horford doesn't have a history of injury, and he's not like a high-flying player. So maybe even as he loses more and more athletically, his basketball IQ is so high, and just the way he plays, maybe he can still get away with it just from his basketball knowledge. Another move that happened, Kemba Walker goes to the Celtics. So basically, I feel like the Celtics replaced Kyrie Irving with a slightly not as good Kyrie Irving, but with somebody that has a better attitude, probably is going to have a better rapport with the Celtics, and maybe get out of him what they were hoping to get out of Kyrie Irving. And I saw the stat over the last 5 years, Kemba and Kyrie basically have the same numbers. Now, Kyrie's been on a championship team with LeBron and been on a winning team with the Celtics, and Charlotte really hasn't had that. But also, Charlotte isn't the organization that the Celtics are. So it's a good move for the Celtics, even though they lost Horford, and Baines. I think Baines left, and Okenlik, I always pronounce his name wrong. I believe he left as well. So the Celtics are going to be totally different. So we'll see how that works out. Some of the things I wasn't surprised with, Klay Thompson is going to re-sign with the Warriors. I don't see Klay Thompson or Steph leaving the Warriors unless it's like years and years from now where they're way past their prime and they just at the end of the line. Players sometimes get moved around once their career is over, and then they'll go back when they like Dwayne Wade and retire, with the Warriors. But no surprise there, Klay Thompson stays. The Splash Brothers, that's the foundation of the Warriors. Even though Kevin Durant is the best player that was on that team, everybody knows that team is Stephen Curry. That's the heart and soul. That's the blood. That's their own. They drafted them, so no surprise there. Sixers also lose J.J. Redick, which we need shooting. So I'm hoping there's still some other shoes to drop. Some other moves that are going to be made for the Sixers to get a shooter, because that's basically what J.J. Redick brought to you. I was okay. I wanted J.J. Redick back, but I wanted J.J. Redick back coming off the bench. And but he got a 2-year lucrative deal for somebody at his stage in his career to go to New Orleans, and that would be good for New Orleans actually, because that'll be a veteran presence in there on a very young team. He could come in there and really help them learn what it's like to be, a pro NBA player. And also they got Zion, so it's that Duke connection. So I think that's a pretty good move for JJ and for New Orleans. Like I said, I really wanted Jimmy Butler back with the Sixers. I would have gave him the max, but the Sixers felt otherwise. I think from everything I'm hearing, it was a combination of personality. Maybe he didn't necessarily mesh as well with the other players on the team and the coaching staff, and maybe just they worried that down the line, maybe he would be upset and cause a rift as he has in the past. So it is what it is. I guess no running back for the Sixers. So I think the East got a lot better. The West kind of dominated, even though I know Toronto won the championship. But I think the East got a lot better, and it's up for grabs now as far as which conference is better between the East and the West. Now, the last and maybe the biggest shoe to drop is yet to happen, which is Kawhi Leonard. And the word is Kawhi is going to meet with the Lakers, and he's going to meet with the Clippers. I'd be shocked if Kawhi goes to the Lakers, even though some of those reports out there. But we don't know much about Kawhi. Barely talks, barely says anything, barely shows any emotion. But I just would be surprised if he would be willing to go to the Lakers and join LeBron's team. I think he's going to go to the Clippers if he does go to LA. But my gut feeling is that he stays in Toronto. Maybe does another 2-year deal with an option to opt out after the first year, or option opt out after the second year, or maybe he does sign the 5-year max. But that's my gut feeling, that he returns to Toronto. But if he doesn't, he goes to the Clippers. If he goes to the Lakers, I'll be shocked and I'll be very disappointed. I don't want to see LeBron, AD, and Kawhi on the same team. That team will obviously be the favorite to win the championship. They might already be the favorite even without Kawhi. So we'll see what happens. I think that's the last big. It's so much speculation. I'm glad that all this is starting to get cleared up, and we're starting to find out who's going to be where. Durant and Kawhi were kind of the two biggest moves that we're waiting to see what happened. So really, as far as the big time superstar players, is up to Kawhi. And but let me know, do you think this is good or bad for the NBA? I guess it depends on how old you are. If you're under 30, you probably don't remember the NBA when it was players especially the elite players and the core players stayed with teams longer than they do now. Where now you might have LeBron on your team, but I'll bet we set in the 2 years later, LeBron is totally on a different coast. So I prefer it when teams build together through the draft, maybe brought in a free agent here and there. But for the most part, they kept their core and built together. But I'm old school like that. I grew up in that era. So this is still something I'm getting used to. Maybe 10 years from now, it won't be something it may be something I don't even think about. Like I remember when shooting a three was like a big deal, and now it's almost a big deal if you're a team that doesn't shoot a lot of threes. So times change like anything else. Society, sports is a microcosm of society. So you got to evolve with the times. So like I said, I'm partial to the old way. I like seeing those Bulls teams, those old Sixers teams, those old Lakers teams, those Pistons teams. I like seeing those teams grow and stay together for years and years, and build up rivalries. But the game has changed. The good thing I like about it, with the NBA being a predominantly black sport, I like that players are stepping up and taking their own future and their own career more into their hands. So that aspect of it, I do enjoy seeing young black men make business moves that they feel are best for their lives. So it's a give and take. So we'll see how it all plays out. Do another video probably on Tuesday to see what more shoes fell as far as this free agency. But make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And please keep checking us out. The more views we get, the more content we're going to keep coming with. It's your boy, Old Scruggs. Leave a comment about how you feel about the NBA free agency. Signing out, Old Scruggs. Peace.